Okay then, welcome to my very first video uploaded on YouTube as well as my first devlog here. So we'll be taking a look on some of the improvements I made first before going on over to the code. So as you can see here from the Mauss.dev, the deployed version here, I've changed the grid views so that we have this layout picker. We can change it from the grid to the custom layout I've set for the reviews page. I've changed the color scheme for the dark mode and fixed the pagination indexing right here. So this is the new stuff that I built. It's a fixed width item carousel that can use our pagination element to go over to the next element or the previous one, and everything has transitions between it. So all of this is purely done on CSS functions and attributes. So let's take a look. I've started the server here. It's listing on localhost 3000. And the first thing I changed is the grid view. So previously I've used grid view and I've abstracted it a little bit and decided to move it to a new page wrapper called LayoutPicker. It's basically the same, but with grid view it has a slot of header, and in LayoutPicker I wrap the header with a header wrapper so that I can position the assigned elements easier, since I can make this into a relative and have this one an absolute value. So this is just the buttons to change the layout, whether it's a grid or the carousel. Okay, yeah, so this is just the button to change it, and let's move to the fun stuff, which is the carousel itself. So previously there's only this each loop, and I wrapped it into an if statement where if the view is grid, we'll use the old each loop, but if we update the view to carousel, we'll use the newly created carousel components that I can use, and I can have another each loop here with a different div, so it will look like something like this. Okay, let's see. So I don't think we need to really look at the other stuff. The layout picker is just a grid view, and everything that happens here is basically inside the carousel component. So we'll take a look here. You can basically copy this and use it in your own website, or just type it whatever you want. It's okay. So the content wrapper, so this carousel as well consists of one main element called the div, and it wraps everything inside here as the class with a class of content wrapper. So this content wrapper, I disabled the scroll bar width for Firefox, and for Chromium browser I disabled the scroll bar too. We'll take a look at the grid template columns, why this has this kind of value. As you can see, it means we'll have 3 columns. The first column will be minimum or maximum value between 0 or 1 fractional units. The middle or the second column will have a minimum of 12 EM and a maximum of 1 fractional units, and the last column is the same as the first column, so a minimum of 0 or maximum of 1 fractional units. So at max width, all 3 of them will have the same width, because all of them has the same fractional units as the maximum value. This will result to something like this. So we'll see with the Firefox grid viewer. I think it's this one, yeah. So as you can see, we have the empty one here. So this is a 1 fractional unit. This also is a 1 fractional unit. So empty, contents, and empty, everything is the same. But where it gets different, where it becomes different, is when the viewport is not enough to support all three of them at the max size. So we will only have the middle one spanning the width of 12 em. So if we hover off the responsive design mode, as you can see, the middle one will always stay 12 em because we have specified it to be at minimum 12 em, so it will not go lower than 12 em. As we can see, if we adjust the size, the viewport, it will adjust accordingly, and if everything reach 12 em, it will take the fractional units into account, so it will span more. But the middle one stays at minimum 12 em. Now, here's the interesting part. As you can see, you might have noticed that as it gets closer and it encompasses the right and left child items, it has this shadow that feels like it's coming from behind and from the right or left side. That is where this mask comes in handy. So if we don't have this mask, it will look very how do you call it? It's not fluid, I suppose. So it looks like it's coming from the sidelines. But if we disable this mask and WebKit mask, so we'll disable the mask first and the WebKit mask, you will see that it's very it's not as clean as if we use the mask. Yeah. So this will only be visible if the viewport is smaller than the three of this combined. So if it is bigger, it will not look like so, because it has all of this space, white space available to them. But if it's closer, it will look as if this is coming from the away from the left and the right side. That's where the mask comes in handy. So another thing is, inside the contents, we have this perspective. So this perspective attribute is what makes the components to the left and to the right feels like or shows like they are in the back of this middle item or middle component, middle element. Where is it? Okay, contents, perspective. Okay, so as you can see, if I disable this perspective, it will all look the same, exactly the same if we don't have it. So as you can see, it stays the same even though I set this div, this left element, to have a transit 3D and with the z index of minus or negative 10 em. Same as the right one, negative 10 em, but it doesn't feel like they are in the back. So that's where perspectives comes in. We are saying that we want to focus 24 rems deep in the viewport. So this is where the browser should focus. By activating this perspective, we can see that everything has a perspective relative to us. Another thing is the transform style. So this transform style is pretty important if you would like to preserve the positioning or the 3D or the positioning in the 3D space in your browser or in your website. So if I disable this, the third element will go in front of this second element, even though he is technically behind it in the z index. So we'll see. As you can see, he moves in front, even though that he is translated behind in the z index. Okay, sorry about that dog noise outside. So as you can see, this preserve 3D preserves the 3D positioning for all of these elements. Now for the fun stuff or fun bit. I was struggling at first. It took me a couple of hours or perhaps since yesterday, but I finally got it working, and it only needs the three of this. So three of this is what makes everything flow smoothly like this. So let's see. Here we're using global selector because Svelte doesn't know, Svelte cannot target anything inside the slot component, so it doesn't know what will be put inside the slot component. So if we don't use this global selector, if we don't use this global selector, it will complain that it's not a use CSS selector. So this CSS selector is unused because it doesn't have any of those classes here. Okay, so that's why we're using global CSS, global selector. And this translate left and translate right is located here in the index as well inside the carousel component, or carousel components. As you can see in this each loop, we're using the class directive. So this is a Svelte syntax. You can use whatever framework you want as long as you're saying that the element in the right or the left, sorry, so element in the left and element in the right needs to have the class of translate left. So it needs to have the class of translate left, and the element in the right needs to have the class of translate right. So I'm saying that because I'm using the each loop from Svelte, and I know exactly that this sieve.slice will return three elements, will always return three elements, I can safely say or safely point the index, so that if the index is 0, I know that that is the first item and it will have the class of translate left. And if the index is 2, I know that that is the last item and it will have the translate right. And if it is not, it doesn't have the translate right or translate left class, it will by default from the carousel itself will target all the elements that is not or doesn't have an empty class with the width of 100% absolute position top. So I've separated this, so all elements inside contents will have this, but this transform thing, this transform attribute, it will have all of the values at 0, so it will not be translated on the z index, will not translate it on the y index, and it will not be translated on the z index. Oh, sorry, so this is the x index, y index, and z index. But if it has the class of translate left, it will be transformed to the left, so hence why the negative value, to the left of x. And if it has a translate right, it will be translated to the right with a positive value of 100%. And of course the most important part is the z index, so it will be transformed to the back with a negative value of 10 em with both of it. Now we need this transition value to be the t duration, so this is whatever you want. You can put it like 300 millisecond or 1 second, but I have my own custom CSS variable of t duration, so everything stays consistent across the application or website. Here I chose to have the t duration to 100 milliseconds, so it will only transition 100 milliseconds. I'm synchronizing this duration with my Svelte transition duration, which is located here. So I set the duration to 100, so I can safely say that this transition will have length of 100 milliseconds, and everything will move smoothly. Right now, this is the Svelte transitions called crossfade, and I'm using the send and receive right here. So it will have a receive animation or transition on the element enter, element in, with the and I'm binding the key to the slug, and with the out I'm using the send with the key the same. But if you're not using Svelte, or you're using another framework, you can safely disable that, and just with this class directives, or wherever you put it, and this elements, you can still achieve the same functionality as this. So as you can see, it still slides into the middle smoothly. As you can see, it slides into the middle, and it slides to the left smoothly also. But the only difference is that the elements moving out or going away, and the elements going in will not be as smooth as if we don't use the in and out transition functions. So this still works, but if you want it to be even more nicer or smoother, you will need to have this. You will need to use the Svelte syntax or Svelte transitions. I think that's it. Yeah, I think that's it. As you can see, it works nicely. Well, I can jump to the last, so it jumps to the last straw, and it can jump back to the first one. Probably my next step is to make it so that when it's on one, I have this first element to be in the middle, and when it's on the last, I have the last element to be in the middle also. But currently I can only target the last one with the 1. Although if we're using our search bar here, so let's see, press / to focus, and we'll see that let's say your name. Okay, so if it's only one child here, it will be in the center. But if it's only if it has 2, I don't think I've handled that. So yeah, so if it's only 2, yeah, I haven't had the chance to fix this, but we can still point this, or we can still select this. It's just that it's behind, it will be behind the component in the middle. So if we want to target this, perhaps you should like cut off so it will move to the middle if it's the only child in there. So I guess that's it. Again, this is completely done in CSS, so you only need CSS to do all of this. But although you also need to have your JavaScript to slice through the data, slice through the items. So this is at most 3 items. So when I move it to 6 to 8, you will need to reslice the data using your JavaScript framework. Currently I'm using Svelte, and Svelte has this really nice syntax for each loop, so I can immediately say all the sieve data, I will slice it, and I will only get 3 items from it. So I've said that this count is just the index which is what index it is currently on right now, and it will slice from them to itself plus the bound. So I set the bound to 3. So if the view is not grid, that means if the view is other than grid, which it could be carousel. Right now there's only 2, there's only grid or carousel. So if it's not grid, I will set the bound to 3. So I will only take 3 from the sieve data. But if it's grid, I will take 12. And if it's carousel, I will only increment it by 1. But if it's not, I will increment it according to the bound value. So as you can see, every time I click this, it will be incremented by 1. So 6 will become 7, and then 8, 9, 10, and so on. But if we're using the grid layout, every time I increment this, it will jump from 1 to 13. So it will move the whole page, just like a generic pagination. So as you can see, it immediately moves to 13 from 1. So 1 to 12, and then 13 to 24, and then 25 to 26, and so on. We can immediately jump with this to the first or to the back. With the layout, we can also do that, but as you can see, it doesn't have that smooth transitions we have if we're incrementing it one by one. So it will immediately jump. But because this pagination is my component as well, I have another thing in this pagination which I can add. So here I can say I want it to tween. So tween, as you can see, it has the JSX attribute. I can safely say I want it to tween between the first and the last. I've saved it. Let's wait it for it to reload. And then we'll move back here and we'll skip it to the last, but it will increment it, or it will have it transition one by one instead of jumping directly to the last one. So as you can see, it will yeah, I guess it's a bit fast for it to process, but it works. Yeah, it still works. There's some animations, the animations is still visible, although it's perhaps too fast for some computers. I guess that's it. That's the improvements I've made since the last deployed version here in Mauss.dev. I've fixed the pagination indexing as well, so it shouldn't have started from 0, even though we're programmers, but it should be 1. So 0, 12, and then here is 12, but this is 12 too. So I fixed that using this. So right now it's 1 to 12, and then 13 to 24, and so on. I've added this layout, and I think that's it. Yeah. Of course, everything here is available in my GitHub. All of this is open source, so you can see how I built everything in Mauss.dev in my GitHub page. So here's my GitHub profile. You can see everything in the Mauss repository. Yeah, that's it. Perhaps my next steps are this. So I've seen the new and improved CSS3 homepage, and this really intrigues me. Perhaps this is my next steps for the new layout that I will build. Right now, I have only integrated the LayoutPicker to the reviews page, but not the post page. So the post is still using the old grid view. I will probably change it, or I will took some inspiration from the CSS3 homepage to change it to change my post page. Also, maybe my next steps is to fix this so I can have it when it's on the one. When it's on one, it will show this in the middle, and if it's on the last, on the 51, or yeah, this is right now 49 because this is 49 and this is 51. So I will probably make the indexing only one, so it says that 51, so 51 will be in the middle. Yeah, so it won't check all three of it simultaneously. Perhaps that is my next steps, and of course a big thank you to Amit Shin. Sorry if I spell it wrongly, but I got my inspiration on this design I come up with after reading his article on how CSS perspective works. So it's updated on 10 September. I think it's published on September 9. So after reading this, I can manage to make this using the perspective attributes in CSS. A big thank you, and of course go check out or read this article. It's good. You'll definitely learn more if you read it yourself. And if you haven't checked out my monthly digest of August 2020, consider checking it out. I will of course make one for September and will include this article as well in the monthly digest. So of course, finally, a big thank you to you who watched the whole video till the end here. Thank you for sticking by till the end of this video. Thanks for watching it with me, and please leave a like and comment if you enjoyed the video. I will definitely appreciate it, and goodbye.